This is a recording of the presentation I gave on Polytope at PX22 online. Hi, I'm Elliot. I'm from Canada and I've been working on an experimental code editor over the past few months called Polytope that I'd like to share with you. The content of this presentation consists of a demo, some notes, and originally a discussion, but I just would encourage you to leave some comments on this video if you enjoyed watching it. Let's go to the demo. So Polytope, first and foremost, is just a normal code editor. So I can write some code. And I have everything. I have new lines. And I can select things, I can copy things, paste things, delete things, and you can imagine on, multi-cursors, Control F, all that sort of stuff. Just a normal text editor. I haven't actually implemented multi-cursors, but this is the spirit of it. But the thing that makes Polytope different is that I can also embed non-text things in my text editor. So let's try an example. Let's make some math inline in our code. For example, let's find the average of 1 and 10. So as you know, if you're getting the average of two numbers, you just add them up and divide them by 2. So you can see I have this nice math notation in my code. And I can even run this. So if I do polytope.out, hello, I can run the code and get a result. So the average of 1 and 10 is 5.5. So let's try some different examples of inline editors. Or let's keep that there. Oh, whoops. And you can see I've tried to make it really feel like a text editor. I'm navigating around with my keys as well as a bit of the mouse. I'll place my cursor there at the start. I excuse some of these overlapping elements and the cursor not showing up sometimes. Some things with focus changed recently, and so there's some bugs. Let's put a markdown comment up at the top here. Okay, now I've got a comment up at the top of my code, and yeah, this just turns into a comment, so I can just write some markdown to say what I'm doing. Let's try some other stuff. Let's change what this hello variable is. Let's try force graph. So this is just a graph of some different things that automatically lay themselves out. And let's run that. Cool. It outputs also as an editor. And another thing I can do, let's just JSON stringify this, just to give you a bit of a peek of what's going on. This graph is really just this JSON object. Hi, quick edit. I just wanted to show one feature I forgot to show in my first iteration of the recording. So this is pretty important. I've opened up this file, g.js here, and if I make modifications to the file and save it, you can see it show off in my traditional text editor. And let's try inserting some more polytope-ish stuff like this and saving it, you can see it just becomes normal JavaScript. And what else? Let's put some markdown. Save it. It just becomes a big comment. Whoops. And let's try one more. Force graph. Okay, back to the original recording. Let's try some more editors before we move on to loading up some files. I've got a colored graph that's automatically laid out. This enables you to have edges that are different colors. Sometimes that's useful. I was making some use of it in studying group theory, which I'll show you a bit of my work there. I have a bidirectional text and math editor, which is intended to illustrate the capabilities of bidirectionality in Polytope. So as you can see, I can write some math on this side and it shows the code on this side, and I can modify either of them and it modifies the other. Okay, let's try something else. I have some other I'll skip over. Here's my music editor. And I'll show you this eval functionality I was experimenting with recently. So let's say I want only this part of my music. And oh, you can see that you can highlight and keyboard navigate inside here. So I could just delete this, but let's say I want to do it programmatically. One thing I could do is something like this. Run the code. Oh, actually, I don't want that rest. Run the code, copy the output, and then, whoops, copy the output and paste it in there. But let's say I want to do it programmatically. I can click this eval button, and this brings up a live evaluation wrapper around this editor where I can see the result of some code. Whoops. Immediately evaluated on this. So I can take the slice of this and I can see the results here. And if this looks good to me, then I can click take, and now I just have that in my code. So nice, that looks good. I'll just mention one way you can think of these editors is sort of like literals for different types of objects in JavaScript, but with some custom syntax. And one interesting thing you can do in Polytope is you can put editors in editors. And you can put editors in editors in editors. Okay, let's take a look at some file examples. So I'll load up this first one. Let's go to that one last, actually. This is just some random notation. Here's a colored graph. Here's just a normal force graph. And here's some math. Here's something I was using for learning some group theory. So this is a Cayley diagram for a group, specifically this cyclic group of size 6. or maybe this is size 7. But anyways, this makes it really easy to write this group down via its K-lead diagram, and then I can get the square of the group as well if I just run this code. So the square of this group looks like that. Let's try the square of this group. Looks like that. Interesting. Okay. Here's a file where I've implemented some different math functions using the math notation. So you can use this to do operator overloading in Polytope. For example, let's try doing 1 plus 1, 2. But what if we want to add some vectors? Oh, I forgot I have the matrix editor. Okay, I'll skip that for now. But you can do operator overloading, and you can define the notation this way. Here's an example with some code to play some sounds based off of the output of this editor. So if I run this, it will play some music. And I didn't really like this part, so let's grab that and let's do some. Ooh, nice. And here's a demo of something that takes a graph, adds 1 to all its nodes. So notice this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then just outputs that. Now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And let's copy that and feed it back in. Oops, let's copy that and run it again. Now it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And for the final example, the state machine. So here's just a very simple definition of a state machine, and I'm setting the state machine up with this graph editor. And so if I run this, oh, I need to change this. This is my old code. Now it will just, at every 1 second, output the next state in the state machine. Let's go back to the presentation and look at some of my notes. So I'll just briefly go through these, and you can pause and take a look more in depth. But some of my goals with Polytope is for the user interface to feel text editor-ish. So you should be able to do anything you would expect from a text editor. I also wanted to have a good conceptual model, which means that it should be easy to make an API for Polytope and make it so people can make their own editors really easily. It shouldn't be hard to grasp how Polytope works. And then and I'm still working on all of these, but on the implementation model. Right now I'm using web components, which is a kind of new web standard for making components. So here's some more notes. Here's some of the things I want from Polytope editors so that they feel like a text editor. Things should be able to be highlighted. You should be able to navigate around with your arrow keys and your mouse. And ideally, it should be spatial, so you can tell where your arrow key or where your caret's going to go next based off of what's around your current caret. You should be able to copy and paste. You should be able to use Control-Z and Control-Shift-Z to access the history of your editor. In the future, adding multiplayer and multiple people editing at once. And This is also important. You should be able to save and load files in Polytope. And maybe I should go back to the demo to show that off. Here's some more notes. So some of the next steps for Polytope is improving the conceptual model around parsing and transpiling from editors. And I think something I'm looking into right now is parser combinators and possibly bidirectional parser combinators for getting the output from editors and for constructing editors from code. Another important thing that I talked about is spatial caret navigation, and I'm actively working on this right now. Another thing is to be able to output editors and copy and paste editors around and that sort of thing. And I showed you a bit about that, but I want to be able to do more things like that. I also want to be able to drag and drop editors around and have some more advanced highlighting. Right now, the highlighting is really flat and simple. And that is it for the presentation. Something I wanted to show is just that I can save the output of, or save my programs as just normal JavaScript files. So I have 1+1 at the bottom of this file now. If I save that, load another file, and then load that file again. Oh, I opened the wrong file. Then you can see it's still preserved, and there's a slight bug with this one, but for the most part, all the editors get loaded back the way you saved them. And I haven't showed it, but the output code is also just normal human readable JavaScript. So thanks for taking a look.